I guarantee you the conference finals wouldn't have been this boring if the Oilers made it. Guarantee it. But we're not going to get into that with the lead because it's off-season time. Let's go. Welcome into the Sports Closet studio for a May 23rd edition of Oilersnation Everyday. Find our friends at the Sports Closet online at thesportscloset.ca, Kingsway Mall, St. Albert Mall, Sherwood Park Mall as well. Maybe you're on the hunt for some Nation gear, like one of these cool floral hats that I think we're going to be rolling out soon. I just broke a sign while I did that. That's my bad. Anyways, they do carry Nation gear in store at Sports Closet. Oilersnation Everyday, a Sherwood Ford Giant offseason question coming up. All that stuff and more. We are live on the Oilersnation YouTube where Curtum is in answering the question that is the title of this show. Are buyouts an option? He says no, buyouts are not an option because it will add more dead cap space to re-sign future key assets. I mean, they're still buying out James Neal at almost $2 million for 2 more years. Boy, wouldn't you love it if the Oilers had an extra $2 million of walking around money? But I equate buyouts to this. It's like going to the bar and drunk. Yeah, you could sit at home and get drunk for cheaper, but then you don't have that one really fun night. Buyouts give you one really fun offseason. Are you going to pay for it down the line? Sure. But that one really fun offseason's kind of lit. Anyways, we'll debate that and more. It's our Sherwood Ford Giant offseason question today. Are buyouts an option? But first, I want to bring in my pal Liam Horrobin, who is back at the Devon Shore home studio. Liam, what up? How was Calgary? You were down in Calgary for the weekend.
Yeah, Calgary was good. Not as smoky as I believe it was here, but I went to a Cavalry game, and that was very good. I met Joe Mason, who used to play for Bolton Wanderers, who I support in England. So,
really?
Overall, yeah.
What are the odds of that?
Like 4 seats in front of me. It was awesome.
And did you just straight up recognize him?
I thought I recognized him, and then he had a name. He had like a press badge on, so that really helped the situation. And I just asked him for a picture. It was great.
Well, I was wondering who that was in your photo, and then I clicked. You tagged him, right? And I clicked it, and I was like, I'm not sure who that is. I thought maybe it was just one of your mates. But all right. There you go. A great weekend for Liam. Did not have as good of a weekend as our boy Michael Block out at the PGA Championship. That was the story of the sports weekend. That was absolutely bananas, man. That would be like, I don't know. I don't really know the hockey comparable to it, but it's remarkable either way.
Yeah, I mean, to go to a tournament and do that against the field that you do against is incredible. And yeah, I don't know if it's really a comparison to it in hockey. I guess like an emergency goalie coming in for a face a shot or two would be the closest thing. But yeah, overall, like pretty impressive. Didn't he get invited to another one or something like that too? He got another tournament, I believe.
Yeah, he got invited to the Charles Schwab, and I think the RBC Canadian Open invited him as well. So, I mean, a dude who I think his previous career high, or this year, he had won like $7,000 in tour events in California, just playing like club pro stuff, goes on to win just over $250,000 in the PGA Championship. A great story there. Let's dig into what the YouTube chat is saying, though. JT was in with a question about 29 and 97. Are McDavid and Draisaitl going to run away after their contracts? I'm not doing that conversation today. I think it's ridiculous. I don't think we need to worry about that in the slightest. JC is in and says the season's over. Take a break. Absolutely not. There's off-season stuff to talk about. Giddy up. We're just getting started. Lance is in and says, I had a guy try to tell me that Kulak for Hudson should hurt Oilers fans and that it was an embarrassing trade. I don't see that at all. I don't exactly know where we're going with that one. Anyways, a lot of you want to talk about, or some of you want to talk about 97 and 29. We are not doing that. Christopher Palmer, can I get my own Nation Gear clothing line? Who do you think you are? Chris Chalmers? No way. Let's get into our Sherwood Ford Giant offseason question then, Liam. Do you see any buyouts coming for the Edmonton Oilers? And I will put it this way to you. There are basically 2 options here. Number 1 is Jack Campbell. And I think we can both agree that would be a mistake to buy out Jack Campbell. Listen, he got better. He was good in the playoffs, and his last 2 games were solid. Other than that, there was a stretch in January. I guess that was okay. It was a bad year for Jack Campbell. There is a history and a trend of goalies going to a new city and not starting their careers with that new club all that well. The other thing is, if you buy out Jack Campbell now and you don't give him a chance to bounce back, you're going to be on the hook for cap hits for the next 8 years. It'll go 1.5, 1.5, 2.3, 2.6, and then the next 4 are all 1.5. That's a lot of money. You save a little. You could argue that you could replace Jack Campbell in the next 4 seasons of his contract with the money you're saving. You probably could. I think it's a mistake. I think you let that guy bounce back and you run back Skinner and Campbell next year. Thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. This isn't a summer I would be looking to buy out Jack Campbell. Now, if next season is a disaster as well, then maybe next summer I'd be looking into that situation of being like, all right, like, what's this going to cost us, or can we move him or something? But this year, like, you got to give him a chance to redeem himself, right? And I think we saw that towards the end of the season. He came in the playoffs and was reliable when he came in, and people were asking him to go between the pipes. So yeah, if I was going to buy out anybody this summer from the Edmonton Oilers, it definitely wouldn't be Jack Campbell.
Yeah, I don't think he's the answer. Justin is in and says Campbell should be bought out, but he won't. Viper says 8 years of dead cap space pass. Matthew says he should not be bought out. Adarath is in and says, I think you either hope Campbell bounces back unless someone is willing to accept him in a trade. Listen, we'll get to Campbell in our player grades in probably like 7 days here, whenever he's due up in the order. I don't think you're going to move him. I don't think there's a team who's going to swap you a goalie for a goalie, and I think buying him out is just flat out foolish. Justin says, Campbell looks so shaky in the playoffs. He wasn't great in Toronto, and there wasn't a chance they were re-signing him. Wonder why. You know, if the Leafs don't want you, you aren't a good goalie. Jack Campbell's got a career playoff save percentage that's like 920 or something. He's been statistically good in the playoffs, and he was good in these playoffs, so that's not exactly true. He had a bad regular season. I think you owe it to him in a 5-year deal. You owe it to him to give him a chance to bounce back. I think buying him out and signing yourself up for 8 years of dead cap space is a mistake. Hey, let's look at Sergei Bobrovsky, Liam. How many people in Florida wanted to get rid of that contract? And now he's carrying them to the Stanley Cup Finals. That's insane.
Yeah, I think Bobrovsky has earned his entire paycheck in just this one playoff run the way he's been doing it. And I mean, hey, if we get half of what he's been doing with Florida in this playoff run with Jack Campbell, I think we'll be pretty happy with it. But yeah, I think you're right. Like, the organization should allow Jack Campbell to bounce back, and also like Jack Campbell should kind of owes it to the organization a little bit to bounce back too. So I think it'll actually be a way better season for him. I don't think it'll be as the trust is there with Skinner now, right? So you don't have to rely on Campbell in the big games, and you can kind of even out the workload a little bit for him and make life a little bit easier for Jack Campbell and get his confidence back. Because we've seen it when his confidence is good, Jack Campbell is very, very good. For me, it's just always between the ears with him where he's at in his game, right?
100%. I think betting on him to bounce back is a smart play. Buying him out is the foolish play. And listen, if it was Jack Campbell at $5 million and, you know, you needed to sign Stuart Skinner to a big ticket this summer and you're like, shit, how are we going to make all the cap space work? Then I would have the conversation a little bit more, I think. But Stuart Skinner signed for 2.6. Your goaltending tandem is locked up for 7.6. Go through the NHL. There's a lot of teams spending more money than $7.6 million on their 2 goalies. So I don't think it's a mistake at all to run these 2 back at their cap hits. 7.6 on your 2 goalies. Jack Campbell, I promise you, will be better than an 888 save percentage goalie in the regular season next year. I think he'll be in that 905 to 910 range. I really do. I think a bounce back is a legit thing. Tyler Mulick is in and says, I wish the equipment I was given was a bit better too, honestly. He talked about apparently Campbell's still dealing with equipment issues. Now I get the joke of the second one. I think that's actually like I read those in the wrong order, and I did not get the joke he was throwing out there. Damn, I think that's the second time in 2 shows the viewers have gotten me or something like that. Now I'm rattled. I actually think that's a huge indictment on Campbell, is that he came into the year after signing a $25 million ticket and didn't have his goalie gear sorted out. How many times throughout the year was he changing the glove, changing the pads, changing the stiffness? Before the playoffs, he debuted new gear again. I would have liked to see Campbell have that sorted out. I bet you it will be sorted out by the start of next year.
That was a weird situation, wasn't it? Like, you don't see players change the flex of their stick 3 or 4 times a year. I guess in certain situations maybe, but like for a goalie of his age and experience in the NHL, like, how have you not got your equipment figured out at this point? Hopefully this new set is good because he did look better in it. So we'll see, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. Weird situation.
Okay, we've spent more than enough time on Jack Campbell, I think, because we can all agree it doesn't make a ton of sense to buy out Jack Campbell. There is another buyout option on this team, and he's the one that makes the most sense. And no, it's not Cody Ceci. Although, if you bought out Cody Ceci, his cap hit for this next season would be $83,000. Not $833,000, $83,000. It would go up to $1 million, then 1.3, then 1.3 after that. I don't want all that dead cap space. I either run back Ceci praying for a bounce back, or I find a way to move him. Kailer Yamamoto is the most interesting buyout candidate. I like the player, but there is now a significant injury history and an injury that, you don't know if that seems like something that could continue to pop up is kind of my read on that. The reason I think a Yamamoto buyout is interesting is because of his age. Because of his age, he can have a buyout ratio of 1/3 and not 2/3. So usually when you buy out a player, you got to take 2/3 of his salary cap and spread it out over double the amount of time. That's like a very simple way to look at it. I'm sure I'm not explaining it perfectly. But since Yamamoto is so young, you can buy him out for 1/3 of that cost, which means his cap hit of 3.1 would go down to $433,000 this coming season. And next year, it would be a penalty of $533,000. So if you can't move Yamamoto, you could save $2.6 million this upcoming season, and the year after only take a $500,000 penalty. That would give you some extra wiggle room. If you wanted to sign a guy like Connor Brown, or if you view Connor Brown as an upgrade and you can't get rid of Yamamoto, buy out Yamo, sign Connor Brown for $2 million. You're saving $600K. You've upgraded the position. I think there is a case to be made for buying out Yamamoto, but the big caveat, Liam, is only if you can't trade him. I think if you have to attach a third-round pick to Yamamoto, I buy him out. I think the third-round pick is worth that cap space, especially coming to next deadline. You could use that pick to save money. Like the third-round pick, I buy him out. I don't attach an asset to Yamo to deal him. I would trade him for nothing if someone's willing to take the 3.1, but I actually think he has a lot more value than that, Liam. What do you think of Yamamoto?
Yeah, I think a buyout would be my last option for Yamamoto. I mean, he is only 24 years old. He is a former first-round pick, so he's got that peg to him a little bit too. He's scored 20 goals in the league before. There's got to be a market out there for him, and I agree with you on I wouldn't attach too much to him to get him out of town. I mean, you just got a third-round pick for Nick Bukestad, so I think you need those picks down the road at the deadline. You want to have as many assets as you can, so trading Yamamoto would be my last option, even before buying him out. I'd even keep him on the team before I buy him out, to be honest. And yeah, we'll see. But those numbers are team friendly, right? Would you say 450 year one, 5 something year two? Like those numbers that are not going to affect you
basically.
Yeah, so you're not going to get hit too hard with it. So I can understand why the others would go that way, but I would look for a trade.
Guitar Maniac says, better to buy him out and accrue cap space for the deadline. Yes, Tyler Mulick, if he's on the opening night roster, you still accrue cap space. But it gives you more wiggle room in the summer here is kind of the point. And listen, I'd like Yamamoto to have a better year next year if he's healthy. But that's just such a big if for this team. And I don't think you want them operating in LTIR for any chunk of the season again. You would rather, like Guitar Maniac says, if it's between putting him on LTIR, but again, that would mean he's hurt and you can't buy out a hurt player, so it probably doesn't make too much sense to go down that rabbit hole. I think you can trade him, though. I really do. I think there are teams out there who will look at a 24-year-old former first-round pick and say, hey, we view the potential in this guy. Dallas traded Denis Gurianov and got Evgeny Dadonov in that deal. And that was a bit of a, swap a young guy with upside for an older guy with a not great contract. And I have an idea on that a little bit later on as well. In fact, I might move up the trade machine segment a little bit earlier into the show here. But Yamamoto makes sense as a buyout, but I would put the percentage of it, Liam, at like 5%. Because again, I think he has value on the trade market in terms of actually getting something for him. I would not be surprised if Yamo fetched you a third round pick, if Yamo fetched you a D-man maybe in the right package. If Yamo fetched you another forward that a team is, maybe not as high on, and maybe he's cheaper as well, I think there is a 70% chance they move the guy. I think there is a 5% chance they buy him out and a 25% chance he's back next year. Do you have an answer to kind of how that all fizzles out, how you assign those numbers?
So, sorry, what was it again? What was the trade? 50% is what you said for a trade?
I said 70% trade, 5% buyout, 25% chance he's back.
Yeah, I think the buyout would keep around the 5% too. I would put him coming back at like a 10%. Then what's the rest of that? 85. That's whatever the rest is that 85% chance of being traded?
Yep.
Yeah, that seems about right. Yep. Yeah, that's what I'll do. 85% chance of being traded, 10% on the team, 5% of a buyout.
Here's why I'm not as high as you on that number. Remember last year at this time, we were sitting here going, well, JP's gone. There's no way the Oilers are bringing back Jesse Puljujarvi for another season. But what do we know about Ken Holland as a GM? And even if he's only or if he's elevated to just being the president of hockey ops, he would still have say in this. He never sells a player for less than he thinks he's worth. And if he sits there and again, teams are going, give us a fourth and we'll take Yamamoto, or you have to take $3 million in salary back, and you're sitting there going, well, there's no players that I view as being worth that, so I'm not doing the deal. Holland has a tendency to hold on to guys like this. And like we saw with Puljujarvi, when Yamamoto next year is in the final year of his deal, I think there is always a chance that at the deadline, you just dump him. And some team says, yeah, we'll test drive him for 2 months, kind of like the Canes did again with Puljujarvi.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point because, like you said, I think everyone just assumed Jesse Puljujarvi was a goner after his last game last season against Colorado, and then obviously stuck around a little longer than anticipated, which was fine, obviously. But maybe Yamo's that next guy. I just wonder though, like maybe the cap is just a little bit too tight for the Oilers to mess around with that anymore, and they just need to kind of free that up. Like Yamo is a $3 million guy who the Oilers need to find that top six forward, and it, like you said earlier on, like if you have a situation where you can get Connor Brown for maybe the same amount of money, you have to move out Yamamoto. I don't think the Oilers would hesitate to jump at the opportunity to have Brown rather than a Yamamoto.
Adarath mentions Chicago as a destination. I think Chicago is a prime candidate to just look at it. Like if the Oilers don't get a quality offer from anyone, and again, I keep wanting to add in the caveat that I think they will make a hockey trade with this guy. I think that will be out there for him. But if they don't, I think Chicago's a team who goes, yeah, we need to put some skill in our top nine. We got Bedard coming next year. Yamamoto's played with Draisaitl and McDavid a lot. We'll take the risk on him for 1 year. And they're like 40 mil below the cap ceiling, which means they got a long ways to go just to get to the cap floor. So 3 mil on Yamo is nothing to them. That's probably a dart they'd be willing to throw. Matthew Jogala actually makes a great point. He says, I honestly think Yamo will be back because there isn't a good cheap winger on the market. And the reason I actually think that's such a good point is I want to flip it. There isn't a good cheap winger on the market in free agency. The free agent class sucks this year. It is bad. If you're looking for like high-end skill, guys with 20 goal potential, it is weaker, a lot weaker than in years past. So while you sit there and say Yamo will be back because there isn't a good cheap winger on the market, I think the Oilers could trade Yamo easier because teams that want to freshen up their look, freshen up their top nine, do whatever, there might not be a lot of better options than Kailer Yamamoto. Like the bad free agent market might drum up more trade activity around the league.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I never really considered that. Like more bodies getting moved, and I like the Chicago point. Honestly, like it's not even about them having so much cap. It's about they need some NHL players in that team to play with Connor Bedard, right? And Yamo, he's played with those top guys, like you said, so maybe that's an option there. But yeah, we'll see. And maybe on the other hand, too, that benefits the Oilers a little bit as well. Of like, there's not free agency players, so yeah, they go and get Yamo, move out Yamo, and then maybe they can bring in a better defenseman, for example, to help out on the right side too, rather than what they already have, and maybe that helps them with a Cody Ceci move as well.
Yeah. Matthew says move Yam to Arizona. They're good at rehab projects. They are. Think of a guy like Nick Ritchie. A lot of people making the Seattle hometown connection. Yeah, maybe. I want to check what does Seattle have for draft picks this year? Because remember, they stood pat at the deadline. They have 3 second rounders. So not that I think Yamo gets you a second, But would Seattle be like, hey, let's flip our third to bring in Yamamoto? He seems like a piece who would slide in nicely to a lineup like theirs where they basically just run a bunch of second lines and they thrive on their depth. So maybe that's an option. I don't think, as some people, oh, would you trade him in division? I don't think you're that worried about trading Kailer Yamamoto in division. I don't think that should affect things too much. A lot of people talking about who's going to replace him. I like Connor Brown. Man, if I had a dime for every time I'm going to bring up Connor Brown on the rest of the show, I'd pay his salary for next year, Liam. Like, we've been harping on this about this guy for a while. He makes too much sense. Too much sense.
I think on top of that too, like, not even our love for him, but the Oilers showed it last summer too when they tried to trade Warren Fogle to get a pick to get Connor Brown before he was moved to, what was it, Washington or wherever it was, right? So
signed in Washington.
The evidence is there to prove that the Oilers are in on this guy, and he's played with McDavid before, a good Erie boy. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's something that, I mean, I don't know. That people are talking in the chat too, like Bourgault and Lavoie aren't going to replace Yamo. It's like, well, I don't think the Oilers want them to replace Yamamoto. I think the Oilers want to find a legit top six right winger. And then if you get a Lavoie, for example, sticks around, I think he's going to be a bottom six guy and likely fill a spot that Mattias Ekholm maybe leaves behind.
So there you go. There's our Sherwood Ford Giant offseason question for the day. Could the Oilers buy anyone out this summer? Like I said, I think there's a 5% chance here. I think it's Yamo or it's no one. They're not buying out Campbell. They're not buying out Cody Ceci. I think you try to trade Yamo and Ceci. You keep Campbell running back for next season. Shout out to our friends at Sherwood Ford the Giant. Usually we go to player grade here, Liam, but I want to keep this Yamamoto conversation going because it ties in to our trade machine for AMA Travel. Head to amatravel.ca/dreams to find out more about how they can help you plan the perfect summer vacation. The trade machine was busy this weekend, Liam. It was humming along. It's like one of those things that mines for Bitcoin. I don't know how it works, but I just wake up and I see that it spits out a new deal. And here's what we got. And you'll like this one, Liam. Kailer Yamamoto to Winnipeg for Dylan DeMello. An interesting candidate, a guy who could probably help the Oilers on the right side, a guy I think I view as a clear upgrade on Cody Ceci. He makes $3 million. The money is a nice little fit here. What do you make of this potential move?
Yeah, I think this could be one that benefits both teams pretty well. I think the Jets do want to get some new faces in that forward group especially, and Dylan DeMello would help the Oilers massively on the right side. I think the thing with trying to replace Cody Ceci is I think DeMello would be a little bit of an upgrade over him, but the Oilers might have a harder time finding anybody better than a Dylan DeMello to upgrade over Cody Ceci, right? So I like this trade a lot for the Oilers. Winnipeg, I think, would benefit from this too. Again, a player who's, like you said, played with high-skill players like Winnipeg actually does have, and just getting some fresh faces in there. And what's the coach there? Rick Bowness talking about how there's like no passion in the team and stuff. Well, you're always going to get passion in Yamamoto. He's a forecheck his ass off all over the ice whenever he can, right? So maybe he kind of fits the mold of player they want to bring in there too.
Yeah, you look at the Jets and what could happen this offseason. They got Morrissey, Schmidt, Pionk, Brendan Dillon, all higher paid than Dylan DeMello. Like, that's kind of their top four, right? Maybe they'll look for an upgrade here or there. Maybe that's why they would want to move $3 million in salary off what's basically their... I know DeMello plays a bigger role, so I shouldn't, talk down to him too much. He also has a modified no-trade clause where he submits a 6-team no-trade list. But a player heading into a contract year, if you were given the chance to talk to him before, I would imagine it's a pretty simple sell job of you can play in Winnipeg, maybe make the playoffs, maybe miss the playoffs, whatever's going on there, or you can play your contract year in Edmonton and play some playoff hockey. I think that's an easy thing to convince him of. And you look at their top six up front and why they might want Kailer Yamamoto. Blake Wheeler, likely going to be moved. I think Mark Scheifele is a candidate to be moved as well. I think a guy like Yamamoto could be a piece where, you just need top 9 wingers. And Yamo, with the upside he has, combined with the experience he has, and like you said, Liam, all the effort-based stuff he does well, the reasons why we love Kailer Yamamoto as a player are probably the reasons why Rick Bowness and the Jets wouldn't mind him either. I feel like the Oilers would have to add a little bit to this deal. And Adarath says that too. You probably have to add on Yamamoto. He says DeMello's value is probably a first at the deadline. I think DeMello's deadline value next year would be closer to something like a Kulak, where it's a second rounder plus something. So maybe the Oilers would have to add a little bit. Ryan says yes to that trade machine all day long. Tyler, DeMello was awesome for Ottawa as a part of the Dorian deal when they fleeced San Jose. He's talking about the Carlson trade there. Is so baked. Is DeMello better than Cody Ceci? That's an interesting tie into what I wanted to get to next. Our pal NHL Sid took like an analytical approach, as he does. He's an absolute whiz, and I love his stuff at our site. His latest article, I think we're linking it in our YouTube story, so you can check it out there. But he took like a step-by-step analytical look at every defenseman that could potentially be on the market, and he started with Dylan DeMello, and these are kind of the numbers here. A positive impact on the goal share, positive impact on the expected goal share, like big time. Quality of competition. He plays against the other team's best players quite a bit, which is something you need to look for when you're trying to replace Cody Ceci, because that's what Ceci does. Ceci plays against really tough competition, plays tough minutes, but he doesn't thrive in those minutes. The Oilers need to replace Ceci with someone who is still capable of handling those minutes and playing next to Darnell Nurse, but can at least keep their head above water. And DeMello, looking at these numbers, does that. His zone exits are good. His zone entry defense is not great. But that's not exactly something I think you lose by subtracting Cody Ceci. So I think DeMello would be an upgrade on Cody Ceci. And at $3 million, like, again, let's say some team out there will give you a third for Cody Ceci. You move Yamo and that third for DeMello. I think you're still a better team with the saved cap space and DeMello over Ceci.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tyler. I think whatever you kind of get for a Cody Ceci may have to be thrown into this deal, like you just said. But the quality of competition is the big thing. I think if Ceci actually played, now this is going to be a very obvious statement, but if Ceci played a little bit further down the line, he'd be a much more impactful player. But unfortunately, the Oilers just can't have him anywhere else in the team because Bouchard's thriving in his role, and Vincent Desharnais, frankly, isn't ready. So the Oilers need to find a way to bring in a new Cody Ceci, I guess you could say, to play with a Darnell Nurse. And DeMello, I think, would be a really good fit. You mentioned the no trade clause, but also the guy's played in Ottawa and Winnipeg. I think he'd be down to play for the Edmonton Oilers one day too. He's not like he has an issue playing in Canada. So yeah, I like the idea of Dylan DeMello a lot too, and especially for the value you could get for him.
We're going to go through every other name NHL Sid had up here, Liam, and I'm going to ask you two questions. We're going to go scale of 1 to 5 for this one, okay? You need to give me 1 being like unlikely / don't want him, 5 being dream fit, he'll be on the team next year. I want you to tell me how badly you want them and how realistic of a fit they are. So those are kind of the 2 scores we're going to give each of them, starting with the number 1 free agent D-man out there, Damon Severson. Looking at his numbers, they're beautiful. This is a guy who plays tough minutes and does well. I worry about how sustainable it is over the course of a long-term contract. So my score on this one, how well would he fit? 5 out of 5. How realistic is it? 1 out of 5.
Well, you stole my answer for both, Tyler. I mean, he's the number 1 defenseman on the market. What team wouldn't want him to fit into their team, right? Maybe he's not exactly a number 2 defenseman, but the others just kind of need a good top 4 defenseman, which he would really fit. But realistically, the Oilers cannot afford this guy unless you want them to move on from Evan Bouchard.
Yeah, we're not doing that. We are absolutely not doing that. So Damon Severson, not a fit. The next name up that NHL Sid dug into was Radko Gudas. And he's got some interesting analytics behind him here. You'll notice a lot of green. Goal share, expected goal share, zone entry defense, very good. What does he not do well? His quality of competition's not great. His zone exits are not great either. That quality of competition, if he's coming in as a CC replacement, you need to play against the other team's best quite a bit. And I don't think Gudas at this stage in his career, 32 years old, pending UFA, I don't know if he could do that next year. Never mind for like years 2, 3, potentially 4 of a contract you're giving him. Considering he's playing a somewhat big role and he's getting some clout behind his name during this playoff run with the Panthers, I think he'll be expensive. So how badly do I want the Oilers to go after Radko Gudas? I'll say 2 out of 5 because I view him more as a good third pairing option, and the Oilers don't need a good third pairing option right now. How realistic is it? I'll say also 2 out of 5 because he feels like a Ken Holland type. So I'm leaving the door open to it.
Yeah, so the first one I would give is a 1. I don't think he can fill in the role you actually want, and I mean, I'd rather just continue to play with a Vincent Desharnais and what he could do in that role, and obviously not replacing him with Evan Bouchard. But I will give it a 3 on the realistic scale because it does feel like someone Ken Holland might like to kind of add to this group.
Tyler Mulick, his next contract is going to look like the good Branson contract. I think some GM will convince themselves to give Radko Gudas 4x4 or 4x3.5. And I want zero part in that. I don't want to touch that at all. The next name our pal NHL Sid looked into was Scott Mayfield. And this one is fascinating, again, when you look at the numbers. Not good on zone exits. That is a big concern here. His impact on goal share is low, but his impact on expected goal share is high. And here's the line from NHL Sid. 1, Mayfield is a player that's gained a lot of trust from his coaches, playing a higher portion of his time on ice against elite competition than various defensemen like Makar, Hedman, Slavin, Fox, and so on. Again, not implying he's at their levels, but displaying the level of difficulty he's got to go up against. He adds that his goal differential is low, but the primary reason is the lack of offensive talents and finishers in Long Island. He comes to a team like Edmonton that scores a ton. That number should go up. Scott Mayfield on a level of 1 to 5 in terms of how bad I want him on this Oilers team, 5 out of 5. Give me this guy on the Oilers all day long. Realistic, because he's a free agent, and I feel like there will be a lot of teams that want to take a run at this guy, I'll say 2.5 out of 5 just because I'm worried about being able to afford the guy.
Yeah, I'm with you on the 5 as well, Tyler. I think this is a guy that would fit perfectly right there next to Darnell Nurse on the top pairing, a guy who's had to be relied upon for a while now in Long Island. But realistically, I think I give this like a 2. I think he's going to want to get some money in his pocket after what he's been paid the last few years. And I got a feeling one of those middle-of-the-pack teams who wants to take the step is going to probably invest in him rather than the Oilers would.
He's also a St. Louis native, so there is the idea of, okay, does an American, will he? You always need to keep an eye on that. But Liam, does the chances Ken Holland loves this guy go up when I tell you the fact he's 6'5"?
I mean, he hits the criteria. Yeah? 6 foot or taller is a Ken Holland man.
Yeah. So he feels like a Ken Holland fit. I don't know if he's an Edmonton Oilers fit. I would love to see him on this team, though. I think it'd be great. Brad is in and says Mayfield would be nice. Tyler Mulick says he's somebody that would really help. Lance, I have time for Mayfield at the right price. If you can somehow get Mayfield signed to the CC contract and move CC, I mean, I wouldn't even know what to say about our boy Ken Holland or potentially Steve Stais. We keep needing to add in that caveat. Let's go to the next D-man here up on NHL Sid's list. This one would have to be a trade piece, and it's Brandon Carlo, who's got 5 more years left with an AAV of $4.1 million. So he moves into the DeMello conversation where to get him, you got to move out salary. I don't love him at $4.1 million, if I'm being honest, Liam. I think he's a really interesting fit. The numbers there look good. Quality of competition may be a little bit low, but he's young, 26 years old, so I'd want to buy on the upside. I don't think the Bruins take back Kailer Yamamoto or Cody Ceci in this deal, though, because if they move Carlo, and they will have no problem moving Carlo, I believe that. They want to move Carlo so they can save money to sign other pieces, right? They maybe want to bring back Tyler Bertuzzi. I think Taylor Hall is only a year away from unrestricted free agency. Bergeron, Krejci, both UFAs. They got pieces they want to bring back. Maybe even a guy like Dmitry Orlov. Realistic, 1 out of 5. I don't see a way in which Oilers can swing this deal and make their cap space work at $4.1 million. So I'll say 1.5 or 1 out of 5 on the realistic, and I'll even go 1 out of 5 on chances Oilers acquire him, like realistic fit. I just think it's 1 out of 5 in both columns.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could make this show more interesting right now, Tyler, but I just don't see how the Oilers are going to be able to swing at Brandon Carlo at the moment with the money they're in. I don't think they necessarily want to add that kind of money to an extra $1.5 million over Cody Ceci. I think they would rather just honestly stick with a Cody Ceci if you have to trade away to get this guy. And I think Carlo's very good, and I think he would be good for the Oilers. So, yeah, I'll give a 1-on-1 as well.
All right. The next name is my boy. Bring him home. The jersey's made. It's Cody Ceci. Carson Soucy. Rhymes with Cody Ceci in a way, if you stretch it enough. But Carson Soucy, man, I am all over the place. I'm just seeing Aaron laugh while I have all these blunders today. Carson Soucy. On ice numbers, very good. Quality of competition number is not great on this guy. Great at defending on the zone entry, not great at zone exits. Is he a perfect fit? No. I would put him at like 3.5 out of 5 in terms of how well he fits with what this club needs, because I worry about his ability to consistently play top pairing minutes. That quality of competition number, again, I think he's better than Cody Ceci, though. So I'd be willing to bring this guy in on like a Brett Kulak or Cody Ceci contract, maybe somewhere in the middle of those two. But again, you got to find a way to move Ceci in all of this. Realistic, I'll say 4 out of 5, Liam. I think this is a guy we could see in Edmonton next year if they move out Ceci. I think he checks a lot of boxes, both in terms of his fit on the blue line and also what we know Ken Holland likes. Rugged, tall, defense first.
Yeah, I think I think the fit would work somewhat well. I'll go with a 3. I just wonder, like, the quality of competition there has kind of thrown me off a little bit. I'll be honest. Like, I wonder if is it too much of an upgrade over a Cody Ceci? Like, maybe it's a little bit different because Seattle's kind of a team that just spreads everything out, right? And
yeah,
so maybe it would work. I do think the Oilers realistically would like to go after this guy, so I'll give him a 4, and I'll give I can't remember what the other one was, but I know my number is a 3.
Okay. So you're kind of right in the middle on that. There you go. Those are kind of all the interesting fits. NHL Sid also listed some other names. We talked about Parayko last week. I don't want to dig into that again. Chris Tanev, I don't think Craig Conroy is going to trade Chris Tanev. Carlson's not happening. He mentioned Dumba as a UFA. I don't think, like Sid said, I agree with him. I don't think he's a good enough defender in his own end. So, I don't know. I don't really see anything else out there outside of those names we already went through that I would view as a decent fit. Tanev would be great. I don't think Craig Conroy's trading him. Craig Conroy announced their GM today. Yeah.
Could you imagine if this guy's first move was to trade their best defenseman to the Edmonton Oilers? I think he'd have a tough start to his time in Calgary.
Totally. All right. Let's get into our player grade for today, Liam. Going to wrap up the show with this for our friends at Star Mechanical. You can find them online. Edmonton's #1 plumbing and heating company, starmechanical.ca. Today, it's big number 14. No, not OG Devon Shore, Liam. Calm down. We're talking about the other 14, Matthias Ekholm. Here's my grades. They bring him over right before the deadline, and this guy fits in like a freaking glove. It was perfect. He turns Evan Bouchard into the Evan Bouchard we saw in the playoffs last year, turns him into a legit top 4 D-man, elevates him up, provides the Oilers with the best defenseman they've had since Chris Pronger in 2006, comes at a decent cap hit, sparks this team to be one of the best in the NHL down the stretch. A+ grade for what he did in the regular season. It was perfect, man. I loved watching this guy play hockey. He fit in better than any Oilers fan probably could have expected. A+ in the regular season, Liam. There's no way you can disagree with that.
No, I mean, the impact this guy had in like 21 games was incredible, to be honest. And not only for what he did for himself, but like you said, Evan Bouchard is now looking at a nice, handsome paycheck this summer, probably because of Matthias Ekholm and all that went on. So I'd give him A++ if I could, Tyler. I think he was amazing.
Yep. Playoff grade, listen, I still thought he was very good in the playoffs. I gave him an A just because, team didn't win 2 rounds. I felt like maybe him and Bouchard had a couple of rough nights in the playoffs, although that feels nitpicky. It just feels weird giving anyone on this team a playoff grade of A+. So I knocked him down to A. Like, I don't know. And his chances of returning, I mean, I don't... do I say it? Do I say I'll eat cat food if Matthias Ekholm's not on this team next year?
Yes.
No, I'm not saying that at all. No. But I think it's 100%.
I mean, I can't see any world that this man is not back in Edmonton next year. He literally has openly come out and said how much he loves playing here and how much better it was than he initially thought. So I think he's going to be 1,000,000% back. I'll put my rate at 1,000,000%, Tyler.
Yeah. I'm with you, man. Everyone in the chat's agreeing. It's A+ or A's all around. Omer says A, and I'll try to get the right amount of pluses here. Plus, 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 plus. So Omer obviously very high on Matthias Ekholm. Some people saying, hey, no, not just grading him as an A, Give that guy an A on his jersey next year. And I really don't see how you could disagree with that either. He was great. He was awesome. Tyler Mulick, what was our record
got a
with him in the
question for
lineup?
you.
It was good. Sorry, go ahead, Liam.
Do you think Matthias Ekholm could be a Norris candidate next, or is that too crazy to think?
Too crazy. I think,
so?
At his age, and also, what do we know about the Norris, Liam? It goes to a guy who is high-end offensively and just not putrid in his own end, although Erik Karlsson might change that this year. But usually you need to have like a power play one quarterback who's going to go out there and put up a ton of points. Ekholm's not going to put up the points to get recognition outside of the Edmonton market, so I don't think so. I think I'd say 1% chance.
1%. Because this guy was looking, he had 14 points in 21 games. I believe all of them were even strength somewhere or another. So I just wonder if he'll be able to come in and have that similar production again. His shooting percentage was like 11.5 though, so that's probably going to come down a little bit too. But I think my prediction is we get a career high from Ekholm next season at the minimum.
I don't hate that. Again, high-end Oilers offense, getting to be on the ice with McDavid and Draisaitl, you're due to pick up more points just from being out there. Tyler Mulick says, please don't jinx it with Ekholm. Yeah, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything there. But it's a 100% chance that guy is back next season. It was perfect, man. And I'm really excited to see how the rest of this contract goes out because that was a dub move by Ken Holland. I loved it. Looking around for our friends at Betway, Liam, what's going on tonight around the sports world? Will the Toronto Blue Jays finally find a way to win a game? Probably not, but there's also Game 3 of the Western Conference Final, Dallas and Vegas. You think Dallas finds a way to get back in this series, Liam?
Yeah, I think so. I you know what, like both series have been so tight, like 2 of them to overtime, right? In the Vegas one tonight, and so I think Dallas will get one. That the home crowd in Dallas has actually been pretty good this year. They look like they're really, really into it. So I think it will give them a bit of momentum. I actually think that series goes to 6 still. I think Dallas will go back to Vegas with this series tied at 2.
You're never in trouble till you lose at home. Betway has the Stars as big favorites at like -130. And hey, they lost games 1 and 2 in overtime. I know Carolina did as well, and Game 3 didn't go their way, but they had to go out on the road. I think Dallas is in a good spot to play their best game of the series tonight. So I like the Stars to win at -135, I believe, over on Betway 19+. Please play responsibly. Bashin is in and says, Nicholas Lindstrom wasn't an offensive god, and he won a bunch of Norrises. 1, totally different era. 2, one of the best defensemen of all time, Nick Lidstrom. That comparison's not quite there. Matthias Ekholm is not on the level of defending that Nick Lidstrom is. And again, different era. Go back through the recent Norris candidates, right? Or winners. I'm going to find them, Liam. Cale Makar, Adam Fox, Roman Josi. Mark Giordano, when he won, I think was still playing power play 1 that year. Victor Hedman, Brent Burns, Drew Doughty, Erik Karlsson, Duncan Keith, again, played power play. PK Subban, Karlsson again. Man, Karlsson's won 2 Norrises, hey? Anyways, Nick Lidstrom in 2011. Like, all those guys I rattled off, like, maybe Giordano's the exception, where, like, their offense kind of first. Victor Hedman is, again, Hall of Fame level, so I don't want to put Ekholm in that conversation. So, basically what I'm saying here is you either need to be a Hall of Fame level defender or you need to be a point-producing D-man who's not terrible in his own end. I don't think Ekholm Norris thing. I just don't really see it. But
what year did Giordano win? 2019.
Yeah. How many points? How many points did he put up?
He had 17 goals and 74 points in 78 games.
Almost a point a game.
There you go.
That backs up my point more than I thought it did. Very good. So big. Gio was good that 1 year. Yeah. I mean, but again, it's a single season award, right? So, I mean, that's usually the way those things kind of break down. I think we're going to have Frank Saravalli on the show tomorrow for Star Mechanical. So chat with him a little bit about some potential offseason stuff for the Oilers. We'll go around the league with Frank as well and get his thoughts on a few different things here and there. So that'll be good tomorrow. Player grade tomorrow as well. Who's after number 14? It's not 15. Shore at 19, is it?
No, Hyman.
What number is Zach Hyman? 18?
Zach Hyman's 18. 18.
Okay. Jesus. Man, I'm having a day if you can't tell. Whew. Okay, Hyman, player grade tomorrow. Fire up the trade machine, Sherwood Ford Giant offseason question, all that good stuff tomorrow, same time, noon Mountain Time on Oilers Nation every day, live from the Sports Closet studio. For Liam, Aaron, everyone else, have a good day. We'll chat tomorrow.